Good day and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at the Primal Council, a very messy fight on LFR and normal difficulty. I've done this on normal difficulty, but the same should apply to LFR with reduced mechanics. So this is the Primal Council. Now the Primal Council is one of the fights players can tend to struggle with depending on a couple of things. So firstly, it is super important in this fight that your tanks understand the tank swapping mechanic. This is a mechanic we actually mess up in this recording. I'm going to try and show you the exact moments. I can't remember exactly when, but it's very important that the tanks swap. So before we talk about anything, the tanks will swap between two bosses. Tanks will swap on Ember, Firepath, and Opal Fang. One tank will take Opal Fang and one tank will take Ember Firepath. It's important not to be too concerned about your current debuff. Opal Fang casts Crush, which will reduce your armor, and Ember Path requires or casts a move that will cause stacks of flame damage. It's very important that you focus on only your current debuff rather than focusing on what tank you're current or boss you're currently tanking. For example, if I do not have Crush currently on me, just automatically take Opal Fang. That will prevent the opposite tank from having Crush on them. Very similarly with Ember Firepath, if you do not have the Blazing debuff, try and switch it through to the other tank. So here you can see, as you can see, he does what's called Slashing Blaze, just to replay that for you. So you'll see there that it actually does a cone-based ability. So as the tank, you need to make sure that you are having them face away from the raid party and away from the other tank. If you and the other tank both get caught in it, you're both going to develop a debuff stack, and that's super duper important. So as you continue the fight, you will notice a lot of things happening. Okay, it's super important to understand that the rocks are based on this mechanic here. So you're going to see part of your party have blue rings around them. This is called conduit rings, and they need to run to the rocks to deactivate these conduit rings. So when they stack around these rocks, that will deactivate their conduit rings and they won't take so much damage. It's super important that they do that. If you have the blue rings around you, make sure that you run to the rock stacks. You can see, by the way, that I have switched to tanking Opal Fang, and this is because I do not have a stack of Crush. He's now going to cast Crush on me, and you're going to see that I now have the Crush debuff. It's okay to have this Crush debuff for a little bit, but it's ideal that the other tank pulls him as soon as you undertake the Crush debuff, because it's going to prevent a lot of damage. Here, you need to be careful about how you split the fight. You want to have your DPS with the ability to cleave, so issues like this molten scorched ground can cause you problems. This is caused by DPS who do not follow the mechanics and cause molten ground to spawn. So there's a move called Earthen Pillar that's very obvious. You will see them. They are the Earthen Pillars. Very straightforward. So this fight can be messy, and it's very important that you understand all the mechanics that can apply to you. So Primal Blizzard is something you're going to see me fail, actually, but it's a stacking debuff that will occur on certain players. You can tell because you have a little bit of kind of like a frost aura underneath you. If this stack builds up to 8, you will freeze. So you can see here, I do not get to the lava pool in time and I freeze. To remove your stacks of the frost debuff, you're going to want to run over this lava pool temporarily, not for a very long time. You are just going to want to run over it and take it on temporarily. That is kind of it from the tanking perspective. So there's a couple other things just to take note of if you are not a tank. So one thing, just to kind of give it a hint, if you have Conductive Mark, as you can see there, remember to take it to the pillars. Slashing Blaze, remember, is a cleave. You want to be wary of that. Then you will see there's a move called Frostspike that's cast by Caladra's Time Wraith. This needs to be interrupted. It will help to mitigate the amount of damage. Along with Lightning Bolt, it will prevent a lot of unnecessary damage. Remember to continue to switch, as this is going to be able to help you consistently. You see this red ring? This is a ring that spawns lava pools. As you can see there, it's super important that as a DPS you do not spawn a lava pool directly underneath your party that are fighting the bosses, but you can store a lava pool relatively nearby to them for those who have the frosted debuff. That's kind of it really when it comes to the raid. There's nothing else honestly too much for you to focus on. It is a little bit messy, but keeping the bosses together is the biggest kind of indicative way to keep the stacks from happening. As you can see here, I held on to some stacks too long. The raid can get a little bit caught up, especially with where the earthen pillars are. And just as a heads up, these marks here, the fire marks, molten marks, they clear the earthen pillars. So if you find yourself being closed in, it's super important that you take the molten mark and you use it to destroy pillars like this player is doing here. So this will help free up your map and help to obviously open up the space, provided you don't just replace all of it with a molten pool. So it's all super important overall to understand what the interactive elemental elements are. But that's pretty much it. There's nothing else. It all then just kind of repeats. There's no singular second phase or third phase or anything, so you shouldn't have a massive problem. But yeah, that's going to be it. I hope you guys understand it a little bit better. If you have any queries, please feel free to let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. But until then, bye.